So it's the end of the year and it's interview time. And there was an interview that Brad Holmes was doing with Danny Rogers, I think is her name. She does a lot of the social media stuff for the Lions and on YouTube and all that kind of stuff. And it was really, really cool. This interview, she talked to him, and she said that Panay Sewell and Amon-Ra St. Brown thanked Brad Holmes, and they went out social media, whatever it was, and thanked him for bringing them to Detroit. And it's kind of cool. It seems like something that's pretty normal. You know, you see a guy that's just like, hey, just so thankful that whoever the GM is for whatever team brought me here. But there's something different about it. And I think this is part of what's different about this team, because Brad Holmes didn't just respond with, oh, well, hey, we're thankful they're here. Like, I mean, how easy would that have been? We're thankful they're here. They're great players and all that kind of stuff. No, instead, all of a sudden, you're like, man, he's taking a second to answer. Is he getting emotional? And you realize he is getting emotional. And he talks about how it means a lot, how it means a lot to him that they would say something like that. And he said, you go through so much in the pre-draft process. And he said, you're talking to these guys, and he remembers, and there are certain guys that are just a little bit different, and you connect with them a little bit more, and they're going to do a great job for your organization. And he said he remembers Sewell. He remembers in the Zoom meeting, there's just something about him. There's something about the way he carried himself, something about the way he talked, his energy, and they knew, like they just knew he was the guy. So Panay Sewell thanks him, and he gives that back. Like, he gives a little love back to him in this interview, something GMs don't always get to do. And he gives that love back to Panay, and basically, is his way of saying, like, I heard you. I appreciate that. We're thankful you're here. But that wasn't it. They talked about, he talked about Amon-Ra St. Brown, and they talked about how they just couldn't get over him. And they kept saying over and over again, we need to bring this guy. We need to bring this guy here. We need to bring this guy here. We need to bring this guy here. And then when you have a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown, all of a sudden you realize, like, wow, it's a good thing. It's a good thing that they did. It's a good thing that they did bring him here, because he just was phenomenal. He really was. And so I'm really, really impressed with the team, what they've been doing, and all that kind of stuff. And I just can't get over the personal side of things. We've seen Dan Campbell get emotional multiple times, whether it's in press conferences, whether it's in interviews, even at the end of Hard Knocks, when he said, we're the team that can and will. At first, 1-6, it didn't look like it, but then all of a sudden they did. And when he said, we're the team that can and will, and he took so long to answer, and he kept playing with his goatee, and you're like, is he going to get emotional? It wouldn't be out of character, but you see in Hard Knocks guys getting emotional, Jamal Williams getting emotional. And then you see the same thing with Brad Holmes, like something I haven't seen out of him necessarily a ton. And like, he gets emotional. And it's like, grown men that love each other, that are in the trenches together, that are going to war together, that are trying to build something special together, to the point where they're getting emotional about it. But and I'm sure it goes the other way, where tempers can flare and things like that. But here's the other thing that I just can't get over whenever I listen to a Brad Holmes interview, whenever I listen to a Dan Campbell interview. They don't say anything without talking about the other person. Like, are these guys seriously still on this much of the same page? It's remarkable. Like, it truly is unbelievable. Like, these guys continue to talk. They continue to be on the same page. They're drafting guys together. And it's Brad Holmes doing the drafting, but he doesn't go without Dan Campbell's sign off. And Dan Campbell won't go anywhere without Brad's sign off. So it's really cool just to watch and see these guys work together kind of as one. And then to see the players buy in enough that they go out of their way to shout out their GM, other players shouting out their coach. You have players very clearly saying they want to stay. Jamal Williams talking about how he wants to stay. Kaminsky talking about how he would love to come back. This not something that's ever happened in Detroit. The only time players thank people for being part of Detroit is on their way out. Thankful for the Detroit organization, one pride, love this team, love the players on it, love the coaches. Yeah, on their way out. You don't see players that are admittedly probably leaving money on the table. Jamal Williams, John Kaminsky saying, I want to be back here. This is where I want to be. This is where I want to play. You don't hear people doing that before they get their contract extension. That shows a level of trust. That shows a level of, I know these guys are going to take care of me, and they have taken care of me, and I want to be back. They've put me in a place for success, and I want to be back. Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, same exact thing. It's just a couple of years earlier. They're saying, look, I trust. I know you're going to give me the money eventually, but right now, I just love being a Detroit Lion. I love playing for this organization. I'm thankful that you brought me here. Thankful that you brought me here because it's a team, but it's the people that make the team. I think all of us have loved the Detroit Lions for a really long time. If you're listening to this channel, chances are you've been a fan long enough to just experience an immense amount of pain, a bunch of emotion in a different sense of the word. And now you are getting to see how much you can love this team when you can like the guys behind it. Matt Patricia, 3 years. Did anyone like him? Like, funny, goofy guy, maybe a little bit in the beginning, wearing weird shirts on team trips for the Patriots and all that kind of stuff. But he was a horrible interview. He was a jerk. He thought he was the smartest man in the room, and he carried himself like he was the smartest man in the room. Nobody could tell him any different. And I just think of Quinn. And it was kind of the same thing, except he looked like an accountant. And that's not making fun of him. That's just saying what he looked like. Like, there's nothing wrong here. I don't know what I look like. So what? But maybe I look like an accountant. Maybe I don't look smart enough to be an accountant. But neither one of them, they were so not personal. And it was all about business. And it was about doing what's good for their glory. And I think that's the difference with Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes. If you're just doing it for your own glory, you're not getting that emotional when you're helping create success for others. I think it's that simple. You're doing it because you want the people around you to have success. And yeah, sure, there's got to be a sense of pride where you're saying, yeah, they can do that in an environment that Brad Holmes has created. They can do that in an environment that Dan Campbell's created. But at the same time, there's free to have the emotional side of things, which just doesn't happen in football that often, at least not to us. We don't get to see it. So it was so refreshing to see it. So refreshing to see the love that Brad Holmes has for his players. It was pretty cool. All right, I got more. There's more from that interview. We'll keep talking about this stuff. Season's over, but the offseason is just beginning. Stick with us. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. See you on the next one.